Every breakup feels like a storm. It starts violently, like the sky splitting open, raised voices, accusations, desperate conversations that go nowhere. You try to bargain, you try to explain, you try to fix something that deep down you know is already gone. You replay every word, every look, every moment that led to this point. Your mind races, searching for the right sentence that could make her stay, the perfect explanation that could undo what just happened. But the storm doesn't stop. The more you fight it, the more it rages. And then, almost without warning, it ends. The arguments stop. The calls stop. The messages stop. There's no dramatic closure, no final scene that ties it all together, just silence. And that silence is deafening. It's not peace, not at first. It's heavy, uncomfortable, almost unbearable. It forces you to sit with yourself and feel every emotion you were trying to outrun. That's where the real war begins. Not against her, not against the past, but against your own mind. The silence starts showing you things you didn't want to see, how much of your identity was built around her approval, how much of your self-worth depended on her love, how empty you feel without her presence there to anchor you. This is the part most men don't prepare for. They think no contact is just a trick to make her come back, a strategy to spark regret. But it isn't about her. It's about you. It's about whether you're strong enough to sit in the quiet without numbing yourself, without chasing, without running, and face the truth of who you are when there's no one else left to define you. Silence isn't punishment. It's purification. Too many men use silence as a weapon, hoping it will make her miss them, hoping it will make her feel the same ache they're feeling. But that mindset keeps you trapped because it keeps the focus on her. Real silence isn't about changing her behavior, it's about cleansing yourself from everything that was unhealthy in the relationship. Every message you don't send, every call you don't make, every time you fight the urge to check her social media and choose instead to sit with your own thoughts, you're burning out the dependency you built on her. It's a painful process at first. It feels like withdrawal, like you're being starved of something essential. Your chest feels tight, your mind keeps replaying memories, your body almost twitches with the need to reach out. But what's really happening is deeper, you're detoxing from emotional addiction. You're teaching yourself that you don't need her response to breathe, that you don't need her presence to feel stable, that you don't need her validation to feel like a man. This is where most people fail because they mistake silence for a game, a waiting room until she comes back. But if you stay with it, if you embrace it as a process, something shifts. Slowly, you feel the fog begin to lift. The desperation fades. The craving weakens. You start to feel a strange sense of strength building inside you. The silence stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like freedom. You're no longer reacting to her, you're focusing on yourself. That's the beginning of taking your power back, not over her, but over your own mind and emotions. Silence is loud because it forces you to face everything you've been avoiding. When the constant conversations, calls, and distractions vanish, you're left with nothing but your own thoughts, and for many men, that's terrifying. The quiet becomes a mirror, reflecting every insecurity, every regret, every doubt you've buried under work, entertainment, or her attention. This is why the silence feels so heavy. It's not just about missing her, it's about meeting the version of yourself you've been running from. Maybe you realize how much of your happiness depended on her messages. Maybe you see how much of your purpose was neglected while you were wrapped up in keeping her close. The loneliness feels suffocating, not because she's gone, but because you never learned how to sit alone without needing someone to fill the space. Most men panic at this stage. They break the silence, not because they want her back, but because they want the pain to stop. They'd rather feel rejected than sit with their own thoughts. But if you resist that urge, if you let the discomfort burn through you instead of running from it, something starts to change. You start to see the shadow side of yourself, the wounds, the fears, the patterns, not as enemies, but as lessons. This is where real growth happens. This is where you discover who you are without her. It's a painful process, but it's also a gift. Because once you've sat with the darkness and survived it, you're no longer afraid of it. And a man who is no longer afraid of himself becomes unshakable. Silence is the hardest teacher because it doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. In a world where everything is instant, silence forces you to slow down. You want closure now. You want answers now. You want the pain to end now. You wait for a text, for a sign, for anything that tells you she still cares. But nothing comes. And that's the point. Silence denies you the quick fix. It denies you the instant relief. And in that denial, it teaches you the lesson most men never master: patience. True patience isn't about sitting back and hoping she comes around. It's not passive. It's active endurance. It's choosing to hold your ground even when your emotions are screaming at you to act. Patience is the ability to let time pass without breaking your own dignity. It's resisting the temptation to chase, to beg, to force an outcome. The man who can sit through that discomfort without reacting becomes unshakable. He stops being a slave to impulse. He learns that time isn't his enemy, it's his ally. Time is what burns off the desperation, clears the fog, and reveals the truth. And when you've waited long enough, when you've let the silence do its work, you stop obsessing over when she'll call or if she ever will. You start realizing that the waiting wasn't for her at all. It was for you. It was the space you needed to grow stronger, to regain control, and to rebuild the parts of yourself that you gave away. That's what patience really is: not just waiting, but becoming a man worth waiting for. Distance has a way of clearing the fog that emotion creates. When you were caught up in her presence, the late-night conversations, the way she looked at you, the highs and lows, you couldn't see things clearly. You were too close. Silence pulls you back far enough to look at her and the relationship without the haze of attachment. At first, this process hurts. You still want to believe in the fantasy. You replay the good moments, convince yourself she was perfect, that losing her was the worst thing that could happen. But as time passes, the picture sharpens. You start remembering the moments that didn't sit right, the subtle ways she pulled away, the times you ignored your own needs just to keep her happy. You see the red flags you brushed aside because you didn't want to lose her. And then something shifts: you stop longing for what you thought you had, because you realize you never really had it the way you imagined. You stop missing the fantasy version of her and start seeing her as a real person, flaws and all. That's when the grip she had on you begins to break. You stop idealizing her, stop believing she was the only one who could make you feel alive. You begin to understand that what you were clinging to wasn't love, it was fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of facing yourself. When you finally see her clearly, you also see yourself clearly. And you realize you weren't losing the love of your life. You were losing the version of yourself who couldn't tell the difference between love and attachment. Silence is where emotional discipline is built, and emotional discipline is what separates weak men from strong men. Every time you feel the ache in your chest and resist the urge to text, every time you fight the temptation to check her social media, every time you let the wave of loneliness crash over you without reacting, you are training yourself. You are proving that your emotions don't control you, that your desires don't dictate your actions. At first, it feels like torture, but over time, you start to notice something different. The same thoughts that once consumed you start losing their power. The cravings weaken. The silence doesn't scare you anymore, it empowers you. And that's when you reach the highest stage: indifference. Not anger, not bitterness, but calm indifference. Her choices no longer shake you. Whether she regrets leaving, moves on, or never speaks to you again, you stay centered. Not because you've stopped caring about life, but because you've built a life that doesn't revolve around her. You stop asking if she'll come back, stop wondering if she still thinks of you. You stop living in reaction to her existence. Instead, you start living for yourself. This is the real victory: not her attention, not her apology, but your rebirth. The man who walks out of this silence is not the man who walked in. He is calmer, sharper, harder to shake. He is whole. And once you've been forged by silence, nothing can break you the same way again. The quiet that once felt like punishment becomes the very thing that saved you.